Hello and welcome to Boo Books on YouTube. We are Derby's independent publisher. This is episode 1. We're about to be joined by author Andrew David Barker, creator of The Electric and Dead Leaves. So today I am joined by Andrew David Barker, the author of The Electric and Dead Leaves, and tremendous books, both of those. Really excited to see Dead Leaves getting out there now. Tell us a bit about the book in your own words.
Dead Leaves is set in 1983 and concerns a group of horror film fans and their search for a copy of The Evil Dead during quite a turbulent time in British history, a strange pocket of British history, where the powers that be, the government, and a Christian body called the Festival of Light were coming down hard on horror films. There was kind of a loophole in the law at that time because when films were created, they obviously didn't foresee videos coming along. So there's kind of a loophole where a lot of these films, they didn't have to be submitted to for certification. So with the boom of the video market, these filmmakers just caught this wave of being able to make very extreme movies and get them out into the public, and there was a huge crackdown, and it was a very, very strange time where video shops were being raided by the police and proprietors were being taken to prison for simply renting these films. So with that as a backdrop, these group of kids in Derby, after this one film, this holy grail of a horror film.
So the story's set in Derby,
Yes.
our hometown. We're sat in Derby Quad as we speak. Is that something that's really important to you, that setting, that location for the book?
My first novel, The Electric, was kind of set in a fictionalised version of Derby. Kind of a Derby by way of Ray Bradbury, I guess. I'd sort of
Greentown, Derbyshire.
yes, I'd idealised it somewhat. With this one, I thought because of the very nature of the subject matter and because I was leaning toward a more harder-edged story, I thought it would be important to ground it in a very tangible and real environment, and it seemed very natural for me to write about my hometown, kind of a Derby that's now gone, and a Derby that I'm very nostalgic for, but very much a place that I know and a place I come from, and that made it accessible for me to get in to the book, to write it, to set it in a world I knew and understood.
I'm going to pick up on that point of nostalgia. This is something that's very evident in The Electric and runs through Dead Leaves, although in quite a different way. Are you a naturally nostalgic person? Is that the reason this keeps springing up in your writing?
Yeah, I think I am a very nostalgic person. I think about my own teenage years a lot still, and I think the reason I have written these coming of age stories is because everything that I am, everything that I love, everything that I became, everything that made me who I am, all stems from those years. Those years really inform your entire life, really. My tastes, my attitude towards things, towards life, towards films, towards books, towards music. It all comes from there. When I write, I want to go back to those places and and in doing that, it helps me figure out who I am now, because looking back brings quite a clarity to things, because both with the electric and even more so with Dead Leaves, I am really mining my own childhood, my own teenage years.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff in those books that happened to me. There's a lot of stuff that didn't happen to me. But there is a lot of me in there, and it helps me make sense of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. The way the characters are presented in the first place, it's quite interesting because they're not immediately likable as a set of characters. If you take them all individually, you have Scott, who is this kind of, as you say, this drifter. I mean, Paul is so phenomenally sort of cynical about the world, even at the tender age of 17. And say Mark, who's the third main character, at the age of 18, he's already seems so sort of world weary, even at that age. Is that something you sort of deliberately said, I don't want this to be sort of the three characters to be heroes, I suppose?
Yeah, it came very naturally, but it came through just trying to be as honest as possible. I knew those people, and I was aspects of those people. In not knowing what the hell I wanted to do at 16, 17, also made me a very selfish and stupid person.
We've all been there.
And I wanted to try and capture that. And the three main lads in it all encapsulate different aspects of my personality, or the personality of my friends at that time, and the frustration of not knowing what you were doing, or being aware of what was happening as well, which was another aspect of it, which is where Mark's character comes into play. He's already thinking, well, this is it.
Yeah.
And just staring down the barrel of thinking, well, I've got this for the next 50 years if I live that long, and that too is, that kind of realization when you leave school is shocking. We never thought about it in school until we left school. That never dawned on us, that we'd have to do this, and our parents were doing it. But I never made the connection.
No, of course not.
My dad's a bricklayer, and he's still at 65 out on the trowel. And he's done it since he was 15, and that's an honourable man. And that's what these kids don't in the book. Just like me, I didn't know that was honourable then.
Yeah,
I was stupid. I didn't know the dedication and sacrifice and sheer will that takes to have a life of doing. I mean, he's a brilliant bricklayer, and that's what he does. That's who he is.
Yeah.
He doesn't complain like the kids in this book do. But he's from a different generation.
Yeah.
I think the generation that I was brought up in, that we were brought up in, had a very different worldview.
Yeah, very much so.
And maybe expected too much. I don't know. For me personally, and what I want to do, what these characters have got in this book, is that they want to do more, but feel that they can't.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where the frustration comes in.
Absolutely.
They have big ideas and no idea how to do it.
Absolutely. Very recently, one of our mutual friends read this book and said, I was expecting a horror novella, but I suppose it's more of a novella in a sense about horror. I think it's something that horror fans will really engage with, but something that's very open to all kinds of readers. Yeah, would you go along with that?
Yeah, it's about genre, and it's about horror fandom. But it can apply to any kind of fandom, I guess. Anything that you are inspired by, I think it applies. It's very much a book about kids cast adrift, really, and finding something in some art form. in this, it's horror movies, or a horror movie particularly. But these kids in this book are also drawn to music and to books, and they find something in that. They find a fuel to guide them through what essentially is a sort of dull working class existence with not hardly any options open to them. I mean, the whole aside from the MacGuffin of trying to find this film, this book is really about this kid trying to figure out what he's going to do with his life, and having no real feeling kind of caged in, because the only options he's got really are go and work on a building site or go and work in a factory, which is very much what I had myself when I left school. I had all these ideas of things that I wanted to do. No idea of how to do them, of course, but at the same time, no encouragement either.
Yeah.
And I did go and work in factories or on building sites, because that was it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I had a pretty poor education, and that was all that was available to me. So in that, this book comes from a very truthful place for me. There was a whole generation of kids that grew up in the 80s and 90s and left school with no idea what the hell they were doing. At the same time, I was very inspired by films and music primarily. Books came a little later, actually, but they made me want to do something, and they made me want to get out of the situation that I was in.
Yeah.
And I'm still on that journey.
Absolutely.